There is a question that has followed humanity for centuries. A quiet question. A dangerous question. Why do some rise while others remain? Why do certain individuals begin with nothing, no wealth, no status, no advantage, and yet shape industries, cities, entire economies? And why do others, often with opportunity within reach, slowly fade into ordinary existence? Is it luck? Is it intelligence? Is it timing? Or is there something deeper, something invisible? Over a century ago, in 1887, a book was written, not as motivation, not as entertainment, but as observation. A study of men who built power from poverty, who transformed limitation into leverage, who turned discipline into dominance. That book was Hidden Treasures, or Why Some Succeed While Others Fail, written by Harry A. Lewis. But what you are about to hear is not merely a reading, it is a reconstruction, an expansion, a deep structural exploration of the forces that separate success from failure. Because the treasure described in that title was never gold, it was never secret access, it was never inheritance. The treasure was internal, and most people never find it. Throughout history, men like Cornelius Vanderbilt, Jay Gould, Daniel Drew, and Russell Sage did not begin as titans. They began as unknowns. Some were poor, some were underestimated, some were dismissed entirely. But they shared something invisible, an internal architecture, a way of thinking, a structure of habits, a discipline of emotion, a long-term vision, and above all, responsibility. This series is not about worshiping wealth, it is about understanding structure. Because wealth is a byproduct, power is a byproduct, influence is a byproduct, structure is the cause. And when structure is weak, effort collapses. When structure is strong, even disadvantage becomes fuel. You are not about to listen to surface-level motivation. You are about to step into the psychology of success and failure, the hidden advantage of poverty, the danger of comfort, the architecture of habits, the Wall Street mindset, the moral foundation of durable wealth, the power of vision, and the design of legacy. This is not entertainment, it is examination, because the difference between rising and drifting is rarely dramatic. It is subtle, daily, incremental, compounding. Somewhere in your life right now, compounding is happening. In your habits, in your thoughts, in your environment, in your discipline. The only question is, in which direction? Upward toward structure or downward toward drift? Over the next hours, we will move layer by layer, from ignition to stability, to leverage, to influence, to legacy. And at the end, you will not simply understand why some succeed, you will recognize the blueprint. And once seen, it cannot be unseen. This is not about the 19th century. It is not about railroads. It is not about Wall Street. It is about you, your structure, your habits, your direction, your future. Because the hidden treasure was never buried in history. It is buried in discipline, and it waits for excavation. Take a breath, clear distraction, slow your mind. What you are about to hear is not noise, it is architecture. And architecture determines destiny.
Based on Hidden Treasures, or Why Some Succeed While Others Fail, by Harry A. Lewis. The Invisible Difference. There is a silent divide in this world. It does not appear on your bank statement. It does not show on your resume. It does not announce itself in public. Yet it separates those who rise from those who remain. Some men begin life with nothing and end with influence, power, wealth, and legacy. Others begin with education, connections, comfort, and quietly fade into obscurity. Why? Not superficially, not motivationally, but structurally. What is the invisible difference? Tonight we go beneath the surface. Section 1. The error of external thinking. Most people believe success is external. They think, if I had capital, I would succeed. If I had better parents, I would succeed. If I lived in a different country, I would succeed. If I met the right people, I would succeed. But this book was written in 1887, in a time without the internet, without venture capital, without modern infrastructure. And yet, the men profiled in this work built empires from poverty. That alone should disturb you, because it means the barrier is not the system. It is the structure within the individual. Section 2. The drifting tragedy. There is a word the author uses that is more dangerous than failure. Drifting. Drifting is slow decay. It is not dramatic collapse. It is subtle surrender. You do not wake up one day and decide to fail. You simply stop deciding. You scroll instead of study. You consume instead of build. You react instead of design. And because there is no sharp pain, you continue. But drifting compounds, just like investment. A 1% daily improvement transforms your life. A 1% daily decline destroys it. The tragedy is not that people lack opportunity. The tragedy is they lack direction. Section 3. The Seed Time Law. The book speaks of youth as seed time. This is one of the most profound metaphors ever written about success. Every thought is a seed. Every habit is a seed. Every action is a seed. You are always planting. Even when you think you are resting, you are planting identity. When you delay discipline, you plant weakness. When you embrace discomfort, you plant strength. Modern neuroscience confirms something extraordinary. The brain rewires according to repetition, which means your future is being constructed at the neurological level daily. This is not poetry. This is biology. The successful men in this book were not superhuman. They simply planted differently. Section 4. The Poverty Advantage. Now, here is something that will challenge your assumptions. Over 70% of the most successful men studied in this book began life poor. Poor, not slightly uncomfortable, poor. Why does this matter? Because poverty creates friction, and friction builds force. A comfortable mind rarely innovates. A pressured mind adapts. A hungry mind calculates. When Cornelius Vanderbilt was a boy, he did not wait for ideal circumstances. He negotiated, he worked, he endured. He was not protected from hardship. He was forged by it. Modern society attempts to remove all friction, but friction is formative. Without resistance, there is no muscle. Without pressure, there is no diamond. Section 5. The luck illusion. Now let us dismantle the myth of luck. Luck is a comforting story. It protects the ego. If someone else succeeded because of luck, then your stagnation is not your fault. But look closely. The men in this book consistently displayed initiative before permission, action before certainty, discipline before reward. Luck is often nothing more than preparation meeting recognition. Most people miss opportunities not because they are invisible, but because they are unprepared. Opportunity rarely announces itself. It appears disguised as risk, responsibility, extra work, temporary sacrifice. The prepared mind recognizes it instantly. The drifting mind ignores it and later calls it luck. Section 6. The structure of success. Success is not a single trait. It is architecture. Let us examine the structural beams. 1. Self-reliance. 2. Economic intelligence. 3. Emotional control. 4. Concentration of effort. 5. Reputation capital. 6. Endurance under pressure. Every man in this book possessed these in varying degrees, and none of them are inherited. They are built. Section 7. The concentration principle. Scattered effort is silent suicide. Most people chase 5 things at once: money, status, pleasure, recognition, comfort, and build none. The successful men in this work did something radical. They concentrated. When Daniel Drew saw profit in cattle transport, he focused. When Russell Sage mastered financial caution, he doubled down. They did not diversify prematurely. They dominated selectively. Concentration multiplies power. Scattering dissipates it. Section 8. The moral foundation. Here is something rarely discussed in modern wealth culture. Character is leverage. Your word is currency. Your reputation is collateral. Several men in this book were known for absolute integrity, and because of that, capital trusted them. Doors opened. Alliances formed. Money flows toward stability. If you are unstable emotionally, you repel opportunity. If you are unreliable, you repel partnership. Character is not moral decoration. It is economic infrastructure. Section 10. The fear of aiming high. The book contains a powerful line. Not failure, but low aim is crime. Failure is information. Low aim is surrender. Many people secretly fear success because success requires responsibility, visibility, expectation, growth. It is easier to remain average and blame conditions. It is harder to rise and accept accountability, but greatness demands exposure. Section 11. The invisible daily edge. What truly separates the rising from the drifting? Small daily edges. Wake earlier. Read deeper. Calculate longer. Delay pleasure. Observe carefully. Save consistently. Improve constantly. No fireworks, no viral moment, just compounding discipline. And compounding discipline becomes power. So now we understand something fundamental. Success is not mysterious. It is constructed. It is seeded. It is wired. But in the next part, we will go deeper into something even more counterintuitive: why poverty, when handled correctly, becomes a competitive advantage, and why comfort quietly destroys ambition.
The Poverty Advantage. Inspired by the principles in Hidden Treasures, or Why Some Succeed While Others Fail, by Harry A. Lewis. The Paradox. There is a dangerous belief in modern culture that comfort creates confidence, that safety creates strength, that abundance creates ambition. But history whispers something very different. Many of the most powerful builders in this book began life with nothing, no capital, no cushion, no backup plan. And instead of breaking them, it sharpened them. Tonight, we examine a truth few dare to confront. Poverty, when interpreted correctly, is not a curse, it is combustion. Section 1. Pressure creates structure. Pressure is misunderstood. Most people try to escape it, but pressure is formative. A seed does not grow without being buried. Muscle does not grow without resistance. Character does not grow without necessity. When Cornelius Vanderbilt was a boy, he was not insulated from hardship. He was required to contribute. He negotiated for opportunity. He earned before he enjoyed. And that early exposure to responsibility created mental steel. Contrast that with modern comfort culture: endless entertainment, instant dopamine, zero urgency. Comfort delays maturity. Pressure accelerates it. Section 2. Poverty forces economic intelligence. When resources are scarce, you calculate, you measure, you think in margins. This is economic intelligence. Many wealthy-born individuals never develop it because they never need to. But those who begin poor must learn the value of a dollar, the cost of waste, the difference between revenue and profit, the importance of saving. When Russell Sage was young, he made a decision that defined his trajectory. Earn more than you spend less than you earn. Simple, but simplicity is power. Poverty teaches leverage early if the individual pays attention. Section 3. Hunger creates focus. There is a type of hunger that is dangerous and a type that is divine. Desperate hunger destroys judgment. Purposeful hunger sharpens it. The men profiled in this book did not complain about their starting point. They converted it. They saw disadvantage as motivation. When Gould left home at 14, he was not guaranteed anything. He learned skills. He observed systems. He calculated angles. Hunger creates observation. Observation creates opportunity recognition. Opportunity recognition creates leverage, and leverage creates wealth. Section 4. Comfort as a silent enemy. Comfort feels safe, but it is often the beginning of decline. When survival is guaranteed, ambition weakens. When everything is easy, resilience disappears. History shows us repeatedly, second generations struggle. Why? Because inheritance rarely transfers hunger. It transfers assets, but not urgency, and urgency is irreplaceable. Poverty gives urgency for free. Comfort must manufacture it artificially. Few succeed at doing so. Section 5. The Psychology of Necessity. There is a psychological state called productive constraint. When options are limited, creativity increases. When escape routes close, focus intensifies. When failure is not an option, performance rises. Poverty, in its constructive form, removes distraction. It forces prioritization. You cannot afford to drift. You cannot afford to experiment endlessly. You must move, and movement builds momentum. Section 6. The Dignity of Earning.
One of the most powerful forces in human psychology is earned confidence, not gifted confidence, earned. When you struggle for your first $1,000, you respect money. When you build your first enterprise from nothing, you trust your competence. That internal trust compounds. The men in this book did not inherit belief. They manufactured it through effort. That belief becomes unshakable because it was tested. Section 7. The Edge of Humility. Poverty also teaches humility. Humility is underrated in wealth culture, but humility creates willingness to learn, openness to correction, patience in growth, respect for risk. Arrogance destroys prematurely. Humility builds quietly. Many of the figures in this book rose slowly, but they rose sustainably because they were not intoxicated by early success. Section 8. The Dual Path of Poverty. Now we must confront reality. Poverty can also destroy. It can create bitterness, victim mentality, resentment. So what is the difference? Interpretation. One person says, the world is unfair. Another says, I will become stronger. Same condition, different narrative. The narrative determines the trajectory. Section 9. Modern poverty versus historical poverty. Today, poverty often includes a smartphone, internet access, public education, access to global information. In 1887, none of that existed, which means opportunity today is exponentially larger, but so is distraction. The modern poor person has more tools, but more temptations. The question is, will you use your starting point as justification or as ignition? Section 10. Poverty as fuel. Let us reframe poverty properly. It is not lack, it is potential energy. If directed, it becomes propulsion. If undirected, it becomes stagnation. The difference is mental architecture, and architecture can be built. So now we understand something deeper. Poverty is not the enemy. Weak interpretation is. In the next part, we move into the internal machinery, the DNA of wealth builders, the habits, thought structures, emotional patterns that quietly compound into power. And here, we begin dissecting greatness itself.
The DNA of wealth builders. Inspired by the structural principles found in Hidden Treasures, or Why Some Succeed While Others Fail, by Harry A. Lewis. Greatness is engineered. Success is not magic. It is not charisma. It is not even intelligence alone. It is structure. Behind every titan of industry, every statesman, every empire builder in this book, there was an internal operating system. Invisible, silent, consistent. Tonight we dissect it. Not the biography, not the surface story, but the internal code, the DNA. Self-reliance, the primary gene. The first genetic marker of every wealth builder in this book is self-reliance. Not arrogance, not isolation, self-reliance. It means, I am responsible. Not my parents, not my country, not the market, not the economy. Me. When Daniel Drew had no capital, he did not complain. He created a commission model. When Jay Gould saw opportunity in undervalued railroads, he did not wait for validation. He acted. Self-reliance eliminates delay because there is no one else to wait for. Long-term thinking. Average people think in weeks. Successful builders think in decades.
They sacrifice short-term applause for long-term control. When Cornelius Vanderbilt moved from water transport to railroads, it was not random. He saw infrastructure as destiny. He positioned early. He endured resistance. He absorbed volatility. Why? Because long-term positioning multiplies leverage. Short-term thinking multiplies stress. Emotional control. Here is a truth that may unsettle you. Most people do not fail intellectually. They fail emotionally. Fear delays action. Ego resists learning. Impatience destroys compounding. The men in this book operated in volatile environments, financial wars, political tension, economic depression. Yet they remained calculated. Emotional discipline is strategic advantage. The one who stays calm in chaos sees clearly while others panic, and clarity captures opportunity. Concentration of effort. Scattered ambition produces scattered results. The wealth builders concentrated. When Russell Sage identified his lane in finance, he mastered it. He did not chase trends. He did not gamble recklessly. He calculated. Concentration creates depth. Depth creates authority. Authority creates influence. Influence creates wealth. Reputation as capital. This book repeatedly emphasizes integrity, not for morality alone, but for power. Your reputation determines your access. Banks lend to stability. Partners align with trust. Investors seek predictability. Many of the men profiled were known for honoring obligations, even at personal cost. Why? Because trust compounds faster than money, and once reputation solidifies, opportunity accelerates. Risk intelligence. Risk is misunderstood. Average people either avoid it entirely or embrace it recklessly. Wealth builders calculate it. They understand probability. They understand asymmetry. They position where downside is limited and upside is exponential. This is not gambling. This is strategic exposure. Systems over motivation. Motivation is temporary. Systems are permanent. The men in this book built systems. Trade systems, transportation systems, financial systems, manufacturing systems. They did not chase income. They built engines. Engines produce income automatically. If you rely on mood, you remain inconsistent. If you build systems, you remain unstoppable. Discipline in private. The public sees results. They do not see preparation, the invisible hours, the repeated calculations, the sacrifice of pleasure. Discipline in private determines dominance in public. This is the quiet truth. Adaptability. The economy changes, technology shifts, industries evolve, but adaptability preserves relevance. When one field matured, these men pivoted. When water transport declined, railroads rose. When old models weakened, new systems emerged. Rigidity kills wealth. Adaptability extends it. Identity before income. This is the deepest layer. Income follows identity. If you see yourself as small, you make small decisions. If you see yourself as temporary, you build temporary structures. The wealth builders internalized expansion. They thought bigger than their circumstances. Identity precedes behavior. Behavior precedes results. the invisible edge. Let us summarize the genetic code. Self-reliance, long-term positioning, emotional control, concentration, reputation capital, risk intelligence, system thinking, private discipline, adaptability, expansive identity. None of these require inheritance. They require decision. Now we have examined. In the next part, we step into the battlefield, the arena of competition, where titans clashed, where wealth became power, where wealth became power. We analyze the Wall Street mindset and how calculated dominance reshaped America.
The Wall Street mindset, inspired by the strategic lives portrayed in Hidden Treasures, or Why Some Succeed While Others Fail, by Harry A. Lewis. Where money becomes war. There is a level of wealth where effort is no longer enough. At that level, strategy replaces sweat, position replaces motion, leverage replaces labor. This is the battlefield of capital. This is where fortunes are not earned, they are engineered. Wall Street was never merely a street, it was an arena where perception moved markets, where patience defeated impulse, where control over systems meant control over men. Tonight, we step into that arena. Power is position. The first law of high finance is simple. Power is not effort. Power is position. When Daniel Drew moved from cattle driving into railroads, he did not merely seek income, he sought influence. Owning transport routes meant controlling flow, and controlling flow means controlling profit. He did not work harder than everyone else. He placed himself where movement passed through him. This is the difference between labor and leverage. Labor creates income. Leverage creates power. Control the infrastructure. Consider Cornelius Vanderbilt. He began in boats, but he did not remain in boats. He saw something others did not. The future belonged to rail. Rail connected cities, rail connected commerce, rail connected growth. Instead of competing in crowded spaces, he acquired arteries. If you control the arteries, you control circulation. Modern equivalent? Platforms, networks, digital infrastructure. The lesson is eternal. Do not compete where traffic is. Own where traffic must pass. Calculated aggression. Wall Street legends were not passive. They were aggressive, but strategically. When Daniel Drew cornered Harlem stock, he did not announce it. He accumulated quietly. He understood human psychology. Panic spreads faster than logic. When others shorted, he absorbed. When they expected collapse, he applied pressure. Aggression without calculation is destruction. Aggression with calculation is dominance. Patience as a weapon. The average investor reacts, the master waits. Russell Sage was known for caution. He did not rush into blind pools. He did not chase excitement. He calculated downside before upside. In volatile environments, patience becomes profit. The most losses occur because of urgency. The man who can wait controls timing, and timing controls price. Information advantage. In the 19th century, information moved slowly. The one who knew first won. Railroad expansion plans, legislative bills, market supply shifts. Those with information advantage positioned early. Today, information is abundant, but clarity is rare. The advantage now is not access, it is interpretation. Who sees patterns? Who reads signals? Who detects weakness in systems? That is the new battlefield. Emotional warfare. Markets are not mathematical alone, they are psychological.
Fear spikes volatility. Greed inflates bubbles. The Wall Street mindset requires detachment. When crowds panic, buy stability. When crowds' euphoria peaks, secure position. Emotional neutrality is competitive advantage. Most people cannot detach from narrative, and narrative drives irrational behavior. Leverage multiplies both ways. High finance introduces leverage. Leverage magnifies gains. Leverage magnifies losses. The Titans understood exposure. They did not gamble blindly. They positioned where probability favored them. Modern individuals often use leverage without understanding risk, debt without cash flow, speculation without analysis. The Wall Street mindset calculates margin of safety. Strategic alliances. No empire is built alone. Even rivals align temporarily. Temporary partnerships create momentum, but loyalty is to strategy, not emotion. This is difficult for most. Business requires separation between personal feeling and structural decision. Emotional attachment to failing systems destroys capital. The disciplined mind exits when numbers demand it. Public perception as a tool. In high finance, perception moves markets. Reputation influences price. Announcements shift sentiment. Understanding narrative becomes advantage, but the masters do not follow narrative, they shape it. The crowd trades headlines, the strategist trades structure. The risk of overreach. History also warns us, aggression without humility collapses, overextension destroys. Some fortunes in that era vanished because ambition outran calculation. The Wall Street mindset requires self-restraint. Victory tempts expansion. Expansion demands control. Without internal control, external control collapses. Modern application. What does this mean for you today? You may not trade railroads, but you operate in markets, career markets, digital markets, investment markets. The principles remain. Position over motion, infrastructure over hustle, patience over impulse, calculation over excitement, systems over randomness, emotional control over reaction. The battlefield changed, the laws did not. The final truth. Wall Street was never about greed alone. It was about structure. Those who mastered structure mastered flow. Those who mastered flow mastered wealth. But here is the critical insight. Without moral foundation, power destabilizes, which brings us to the next dimension, because wealth without character eventually self-destructs. The moral dimension of wealth. Why integrity was not weakness, but strategic advantage. Why reputation outlives fortune. Why character determines sustainability. And why many who gained quickly lost faster.
The moral dimension of wealth. Inspired by the structural lessons found in Hidden Treasures, or Why Some Succeed While Others Fail, by Harry A. Lewis. The question no one asks. In modern wealth culture, we ask, how do I get rich? How do I scale? How do I multiply income? But rarely do we ask, what sustains wealth? What protects power? What prevents collapse? History is full of men who built fortunes and lost them. So what is the dividing line between temporary wealth and durable legacy? Character. Not as a moral slogan, but as structural necessity. Tonight we examine wealth at its most underestimated layer. Character is economic infrastructure. Most people see character as personal virtue, but the builders profiled in this book reveals something deeper. Character is financial leverage. Trust lowers friction. Integrity accelerates agreement. Reliability reduces risk premium. When Russell Sage was known for honoring commitments, capital flowed toward him more easily.
Why? Because money prefers stability. Markets reward predictability. Reputation becomes invisible collateral. Without it, even intelligence struggles. The cost of broken words. In high finance, a broken promise travels faster than a signed contract. Once trust fractures, access narrows, doors close quietly, opportunities disappear silently. The men who endured did not always win quickly, but they won repeatedly, because partners returned, credit extended, alliances strengthened. Your word becomes your bond, and your bond becomes your bandwidth. Shortcut wealth versus structured wealth. There are two paths to money: acceleration through manipulation or expansion through structure. Manipulation creates spikes. Structure creates systems. History shows us many speculators who rose rapidly and collapsed violently. But those who anchored their operations in disciplined structure and ethical boundaries survived cycles. Temporary advantage fades. Sustainable trust compounds. Internal discipline before external success. Here is an uncomfortable truth. Many people desire wealth without self-governance, but power magnifies character. If you are impulsive with little money, you will be destructive with much money. If you are dishonest in small matters, scale will expose you. The titans who endured built self-control first. They mastered appetite, emotion, impulse. Because once capital scales, your weaknesses scale with it. Humility as strategic strength. We often associate dominance with ego, but humility preserves adaptability. When Cornelius Vanderbilt shifted industries, he did not cling to pride. He adapted. Humility allows learning. Arrogance blocks evolution. Markets punish arrogance eventually. The humble strategist survives disruption. Wealth tests moral foundation. Poverty reveals need. Wealth reveals identity. When scarcity disappears, who are you? Many fortunes dissolved not because of bad strategy, but because of moral erosion. Excess comfort invites excess indulgence. Without internal restraint, external success decays. Character is not for survival alone, it is for preservation. Reputation outlives fortune. Money fluctuates, reputation echoes. Even after fortunes shift, names remain attached to conduct. Consider how certain financial battles of the 19th century are remembered not only for profit, but for behavior. In competitive environments, tactics matter, but legacy magnifies conduct. Those who balanced ambition with restraint maintained influence beyond balance sheets. Ethics and strategy are not enemies. A false narrative dominates modern hustle culture, that ethics slow you down. But in structured markets, ethics accelerate scale, because scale requires partners, scale requires teams, scale requires investors. No one builds empires in isolation, and isolation grows from mistrust. Ethics reduce transaction cost. Reduced friction increases velocity. Velocity increases compounding. Ethics become multiplier. The inner courtroom. Beyond markets and partners, there is a quieter dimension, your internal standard, the self-respect you carry. Men who violated their own code often lost clarity, and clarity is competitive advantage. When conscience is unsettled, judgment distorts. But when internal alignment exists, decision-making sharpens. Peace increases focus. Focus increases precision. Precision increases power. The balance of ambition and restraint. Ambition drives expansion. Restraint prevents implosion. The great builders walked this tension carefully. They were bold, but not reckless, confident, but not blind, strategic, but not corrupt beyond sustainability. This balance defines durable wealth. Modern application. Today's world glorifies speed, virality, rapid scaling, but sustainability remains governed by the same laws. Your digital reputation, your reliability, your consistency, your ethical boundaries, these determine long-term positioning. Character compounds just like capital, slowly, silently, exponentially. The final truth. Money amplifies, it does not transform. If foundation is weak, scale collapses. If foundation is strong, scale stabilizes. The builders in this book were not saints, but those who endured understood something crucial. Wealth without moral structure becomes unstable architecture, and unstable architecture always cracks. So far, we have explored the psychology of failure, why some individuals with equal opportunity self-sabotage, why drifting resumes even after clarity, why success requires vigilance against inner collapse, because sometimes the greatest enemy is not the market, it is the mind.
The psychology of failure. Inspired by the structural contrasts explored in Hidden Treasures or Why Some Succeed While Others Fail by Harry A. Lewis. Failure is rarely sudden. Failure almost never explodes. It erodes. It is not dramatic collapse. It is silent compromise. A small delay, a small excuse, a small avoidance, repeated quietly until direction disappears. Tonight, we examine something uncomfortable. Why do some men fail even when opportunity exists? Why do some begin strong and end average? Why does momentum die? The answer is not external. It is psychological architecture. Drifting, the slow decay. The most dangerous force in life is not opposition, it is drift. Drift requires no decision, no courage, no resistance. You simply stop steering. You wake without intention. You work without aim. You consume without awareness. And because nothing catastrophic happens immediately, you continue. The tragedy of drifting is delay. You do not feel the loss in real time, but compounding works in reverse too. Small neglects accumulate. Small distractions compound. Small compromises redefine identity. Drift is failure in slow motion. The comfort trap. We explored poverty as fuel. Now we explore comfort as sedative. Comfort weakens urgency. Urgency drives action. When basic needs are met, ambition must be chosen. But most do not choose it. They default to ease. Entertainment replaces effort. Comparison replaces creation. Consumption replaces construction. Comfort does not destroy loudly. It softens quietly, until ambition feels unnecessary. The fear of responsibility. Many people claim they want success. Few want responsibility. Success requires visibility, accountability, expectation, pressure. Failure allows invisibility, excuses, blame, safety in anonymity. The mind sometimes chooses smaller goals not because it cannot achieve bigger ones, but because smaller goals demand less responsibility. This is subconscious self-protection, and it limits potential more than any market condition. Emotional instability.
History shows many intelligent individuals who failed financially. Why? Emotional volatility. Impulse destroys structure. Impatience interrupts compounding. Ego rejects correction. Even in the competitive world of finance, shaped by figures like Gould, emotional miscalculation could destroy years of positioning. The successful learn to regulate, not suppress emotion, regulate it. Calm thinking in chaotic environments creates advantage. Unstable emotion magnifies loss. Short-term gratification. One of the most powerful enemies of wealth is immediacy, the desire to feel good now, to celebrate early, to spend prematurely, to relax before structure stabilizes. The men who endured in the era of Daniel Drew and Cornelius Vanderbilt understood delay. They reinvested, they consolidated, they fortified position before indulgence. Modern culture promotes visibility before stability, but visibility without foundation collapses. Victim narrative. Failure often hides inside narrative. The system is unfair. I was not lucky. Others had advantages. These may contain partial truth, but narrative determines reaction. Two individuals experience the same obstacle. One interprets it as confirmation of limitation. The other interprets it as training. The narrative you adopt shapes your response. Response shapes trajectory. Lack of concentration. Scattered focus weakens force. The mind that jumps between ideas never compounds. 1 week trading, 1 month content creation, 1 year business. No depth, no mastery. Failure often is not lack of talent, it is lack of sustained focus. Concentration builds authority. Authority builds leverage. Leverage builds wealth. Without concentration, effort dissipates. Environmental influence. Human beings mirror surroundings. If your environment normalizes mediocrity, ambition feels abnormal. If your circle avoids risk, you will hesitate. If your peers mock discipline, you will dilute it. Many fail not because they lack ability, but because they lack supportive ecosystems. Environment quietly programs standards. Standards shape performance. Loss of self-trust. Perhaps the deepest layer of failure is this: broken promises to self. When you say you will wake early and do not, when you plan discipline and avoid it, each broken commitment reduces internal credibility. Eventually, you stop believing yourself, and without self-trust, execution collapses. The successful restore self-trust through consistency, small wins, repeated discipline, rebuilt credibility, internally first. Success fatigue. There is another danger rarely discussed: early success. It creates comfort, recognition, validation, and sometimes complacency. Without vigilance, growth plateaus. The very achievement that elevated you becomes ceiling. Failure can occur after success because maintenance requires effort equal to ascent, and many underestimate that. The invisible war. The greatest competition is internal. Distraction versus focus, comfort versus ambition, impulse versus discipline, ego versus humility, fear versus responsibility. Every day, choices accumulate. The war is quiet, no applause, no spotlight, but outcomes are determined here. Reconstruction. Failure is not final, but correction requires awareness. To rebuild,
Restore self-trust with small commitments. Eliminate drift by defining direction. Reduce distraction. Choose environment intentionally. Reconnect with long-term purpose. Psychological strength can be trained, just like financial skill, but it demands conscious design. We have now examined the outer world of wealth and the inner world of collapse. The architecture of habits. Because success is not built in intensity, it is built in repetition. Daily patterns, automatic behaviors, invisible routines that compound into destiny. If the mind is battlefield, habits are weapons.
The architecture of habits. Inspired by the foundational patterns reflected in Hidden Treasures or Why Some Succeed While Others Fail by Harry A. Lewis. Destiny is automated. Success is not an event, it is a system. You do not rise because of motivation, you rise because of repetition. Every titan profiled in this work, whether in railroads, finance, or commerce, did not depend on bursts of inspiration. They depended on structured habit. Tonight, we uncover the architecture behind it, because once behavior becomes automatic, destiny becomes predictable. Habits as invisible investments. Think of habits as micro-investments, small deposits, daily. Most people underestimate small actions because results are invisible at first, but compounding does not require drama. When Russell Sage practiced financial restraint daily, he was not making headlines, he was reinforcing structure. Daily discipline multiplies silently, just like interest. Habits are either earning for you or against you. The morning edge. High performers across history share a pattern: intentional beginnings. The first hour of your day programs direction. Drift begins in the morning. Clarity begins in the morning. Those who shaped infrastructure like Cornelius Vanderbilt operated with purpose. Time was not consumed randomly, it was allocated. Modern chaos begins with reactive mornings, notifications, scrolling, comparison. But the architect of wealth begins with construction, planning, calculation, silence. The first habit determines mental posture. Focus as a trained muscle. Concentration is not personality, it is conditioning. The builders in the era of Daniel Drew did not operate in distraction-saturated environments, yet they still trained focus. Deep study, detailed analysis, long negotiation sessions. Today, distraction is industrialized, which means focus is rarer, which makes it more valuable. A daily habit of uninterrupted deep work separates creators from consumers. Delayed gratification. Every successful individual in this book displayed patience, reinvestment over indulgence, stability over spectacle. Delayed gratification is not denial, it is strategic sequencing. You postpone pleasure to multiply leverage. Modern culture promotes visibility before value, but structure requires foundation before expansion. The habit of delay increases resilience, and resilience increases power. Economic awareness. Wealth builders think financially every day, not obsessively, but consciously. Where is capital flowing? Where are inefficiencies? Where are margins? This habit of economic observation trains opportunity recognition. The average person moves through markets blindly. The builder studies movement. Opportunity often hides in plain sight, but only trained minds detect it. Reputation maintenance. Character is habit. Integrity is repetition. Keeping small promises, responding consistently, honoring agreements. Trust is built daily, destroyed instantly.
Sustainable wealth requires stable perception. This is not about image, it is about reliability. When your behavior becomes predictably disciplined, opportunity increases. Environmental design. Habits do not survive hostile environments. If your surroundings encourage distraction, your discipline will erode. The wealth builders shaped their context, offices structured for productivity, networks aligned with ambition, partnerships chosen strategically. Environment reduces friction. Reduce friction around positive behaviors. Increase friction around destructive ones. Design beats willpower. Tracking and correction. Structure requires measurement. Financial leaders tracked numbers obsessively, margins, costs, returns. The same applies personally. Track time, track output, track growth. Unmeasured behavior drifts, measured behavior sharpens. A simple weekly review can prevent years of stagnation. Energy management. Habits are not only about time, they are about energy, sleep, nutrition, movement, mental clarity. An exhausted mind makes poor financial decisions. The builders who endured maintained stamina. Wealth requires sustained effort. Sustained effort requires sustainable physiology. Discipline extends beyond business. It includes body. Identity reinforcement. Habits solidify identity. Each disciplined act reinforces, I am reliable, I am focused, I am strategic. Identity grows from repetition. If you act wealthy before you are wealthy, not in appearance but in discipline, results follow. Identity precedes income, always. Small wins, large momentum. Momentum begins microscopically, one consistent behavior, repeated. Confidence grows from execution. Execution builds courage. Courage increases scale. The wealth builders did not leap instantly into empires. They scaled gradually. Structured habits allowed expansion without collapse. The automation of excellence. When habits become automatic, decision fatigue decreases. You no longer debate discipline, you operate within it. This is the hidden advantage. The average person negotiates with themselves daily. The architect of wealth acts without internal argument. Automation eliminates emotional interference. Breaking destructive patterns. Not all habits build. Some sabotage. Late nights, impulse spending, emotional reactions, comparison addiction. Replacing habits requires substitution, not elimination alone. Remove distraction, insert construction, gradually, consistently. The compounding law. Let us state it clearly. Small, disciplined actions repeated daily create exponential outcomes. Small, undisciplined actions repeated daily create exponential regret. Compounding is neutral. It obeys behavior. Every day is deposit or withdrawal. The question is not whether compounding is happening, it is in which direction. We now understand. Wealth is structural. Failure is psychological. Character is stabilizing. Habits are architectural. The power of vision. Because habits without direction become efficient stagnation. Vision determines destination. Structure determines arrival. And without vision, even discipline loses meaning.
The power of vision. Inspired by the expansive thinking reflected in Hidden Treasures, or Why Some Succeed While Others Fail by Harry A. Lewis. Without vision, discipline drifts. Habits create momentum. Character creates stability. Strategy creates leverage. But vision creates direction. Without vision, discipline becomes mechanical. You can wake early, work hard, save consistently, and still build something small. Vision determines scale. It defines the size of the structure you are willing to construct. Tonight, we explore the force that separates the merely successful from the transformational. Vision expands identity. Before wealth expands, identity expands. The men profiled in this book did not think like laborers, they thought like architects. When Cornelius Vanderbilt looked at railroads, he did not see tracks, he saw national infrastructure. He saw connection, he saw inevitability. Vision is the ability to see what is forming before it becomes obvious. Most people see what exists. Builders see what is emerging. Thinking in systems, not tasks. Average minds think in tasks. What do I need to do today? Visionary minds think in systems. What am I building over decades? The financiers of the 19th century, including figures like Gould, positioned themselves not for quick transactions, but for structural influence. They acquired routes, merged lines, shaped corridors of commerce. Vision shifts focus from activity to architecture. Activity pays bills, architecture builds empires. Courage to aim high. There is a hidden fear in large ambition, visibility, responsibility, scrutiny. To think beyond your current position requires psychological expansion. The book repeatedly contrasts low aim with high aspiration. Low aim feels safe, high aim demands transformation. But here is the paradox. Small thinking requires just as much effort over time. It simply produces smaller outcomes. If effort is required anyway, why not direct it toward magnitude? Vision and sacrifice. Large vision demands trade-offs. You cannot build something enduring while prioritizing constant comfort. The builders in this era sacrificed leisure, certainty, approval. They endured criticism, opposition, misunderstanding. Because vision pulls you forward even when applause is absent. Short-term validation must be surrendered for long-term legacy. Future positioning. Visionaries position before consensus. They act before confirmation. When infrastructure was expanding across America, individuals like Daniel Drew understood that transport networks would determine commerce. They aligned early. Vision identifies trajectories. It studies direction of growth, population shifts, technological acceleration, economic reallocation, and then moves ahead of the curve. The crowd follows stability. The visionary creates it. Mental time travel. One powerful trait of visionaries is mental projection. They think forward. Where will this industry be in 10 years? Where will capital concentrate? Where will inefficiencies emerge? This mental time travel reduces short-term distraction. When your eyes are fixed on decade-scale outcomes, daily noise loses emotional grip. Vision compresses chaos into clarity. Vision requires solitude. Crowds resist large ideas. They defend normalcy. Vision often develops in quiet reflection, strategic isolation, time to think deeply. Modern environments are saturated with noise, but deep vision forms in silence. The ability to detach from constant input sharpens foresight. Self-limiting beliefs. Many never expand vision because they shrink identity. I am not capable. I do not have connections. I started too late. These thoughts become ceilings.
but history contradicts them repeatedly. Most figures in this book began with disadvantage. What separated them was not perfect conditions, it was refusal to think small. Vision does not ignore reality, it transcends it strategically. Building beyond yourself. True vision extends beyond personal gain. It considers systems that outlast the founder, institutions, structures, infrastructure, legacy. When ambition expands beyond income into impact, motivation deepens, energy increases, purpose stabilizes discipline. Small goals exhaust quickly, large missions sustain. Vision and adaptability. Vision is not rigidity, it is directional clarity. Methods may change, tools may evolve, but destination remains constant. Those who survived volatile economic cycles adjusted tactics while maintaining strategic intent. Without adaptability, vision becomes fantasy. Without vision, adaptability becomes wandering. Both are required. The magnetic effect. Clear vision attracts alignment. Investors support clarity. Teams follow conviction. Partners trust direction. Uncertainty repels collaboration. When you articulate a defined future, people orient toward it. Vision multiplies influence. Influence multiplies leverage. Leverage multiplies wealth. The cost of small thinking. Let us confront a quiet danger. Small vision wastes capacity. You are capable of more than you attempt. Most people limit ambition to avoid risk, but stagnation is also risk. The regret of unrealized potential exceeds the discomfort of disciplined expansion. The builders in this book risked criticism and failure, but they avoided mediocrity. Practical application. How do you build vision? 1. Study long-term trends. 2. Allocate time weekly for strategic thinking. 3. Write decade-scale goals. 4. Identify structural opportunities, not quick wins. 5. Surround yourself with forward-thinking individuals. Vision is not spontaneous, it is cultivated. The inner expansion. Before infrastructure expands, mind expands. Before systems scale, belief scales. Your future ceiling is determined by your current mental horizon. Expand horizon, structure follows. We have now built structural mindset, psychological resilience, habit architecture, strategic thinking, moral stability, expansive vision. Legacy and influence. Because wealth alone is limited, impact extends beyond lifetime. And the greatest builders understood something profound. True success is measured not only in accumulation, but in continuation.
Legacy, influence, and building beyond your lifetime. Inspired by the enduring lessons reflected in Hidden Treasures, or Why Some Succeed While Others Fail, by Harry A. Lewis. Wealth is temporary. Impact is not. Money circulates, power shifts, markets fluctuate, but influence echoes. There is a level of thinking beyond income, beyond assets, beyond personal achievement. It is the level of legacy. The builders of the 19th century did not merely accumulate capital, they shaped systems that outlived them. Tonight, we explore the dimension that separates the wealthy from the historically significant. the shift from accumulation to contribution. In early stages, ambition is survival, then stability, then scale. But eventually, a deeper question emerges. What remains after me? Figures like Cornelius Vanderbilt did not only control transport networks, they influenced the economic trajectory of an entire nation. Infrastructure outlives individuals. Institutions outlive founders. Legacy begins when ambition expands beyond self. Influence as multiplied impact. Influence is leverage over human behavior. Wealth creates options. Influence shapes direction. When financiers such as Gould positioned themselves within transport systems, their decisions affected industries, towns, migration patterns. This is multiplied consequence. The larger your structure, the wider your ripple. Legacy thinking asks, what ripple am I creating? Reputation in history. History remembers conduct, not just profit. Names endure based on narrative. Were they builders, stabilizers, predators, visionaries? Your reputation becomes part of historical memory. Even in competitive environments shaped by figures like Daniel Drew, reputation defined long-term remembrance. Legacy is not accidental. It is behavioral consistency over time. Building systems that outlive you. True legacy requires structure beyond personality. Businesses dependent solely on charisma collapse when the founder exits. Institutions built on principles endure. Systems, processes, governance, documentation, succession planning. The transition from operator to architect marks the beginning of legacy construction. The responsibility of scale. As influence grows, responsibility expands. Your decisions impact employees, communities, industries, future entrepreneurs. Scale magnifies both competence and flaw. Legacy builders think beyond quarterly returns. They consider generational consequence. Short-term exploitation weakens long-term stability. Enduring influence requires ethical foresight. Teaching and mentorship. One overlooked element of legacy is transfer. Knowledge passed forward multiplies impact. Many builders invested in education, advisory roles, institutional support. Influence grows when wisdom is transmitted. Without mentorship, progress resets each generation. With mentorship, progress compounds. Legacy includes intellectual inheritance. Capital with purpose. Money without direction disperses. Money with mission concentrates. When wealth aligns with constructive impact, its lifespan extends. Capital directed toward infrastructure, innovation, and stability continues working long after the original accumulation. Purpose sustains energy. Energy sustains action. Action sustains legacy. The test of time. Time filters significance. Temporary trends fade. Structural contributions remain. The railroads that reshaped commerce, the financial systems that stabilized markets, the institutions that educated generations. Legacy thinking asks, will this matter in 20 years, 50 years, 100 years? If not, perhaps the aim is too small. Personal legacy. Not all legacy is industrial. Some is personal. Family stability, intellectual heritage, cultural influence, community leadership. You do not need national infrastructure to build lasting impact, but you must think beyond immediate gratification. Consistency builds memory. Character builds narrative. Narrative builds legacy. The danger of empty ambition. Ambition without meaning breeds isolation. Wealth without meaning breeds emptiness. Many achieve financial success, yet feel dissatisfaction. Why? Because accumulation alone does not satisfy human depth. Contribution aligns ambition with significance. Significance stabilizes fulfillment. Legacy is not only external impact, it is internal coherence. Designing your continuation. Ask yourself, what system am I building? Who benefits after I step away? What knowledge am I preserving? What structure remains? If everything collapses when you stop working, you have built income, not legacy. Legacy requires independence from your daily presence. The intersection of vision and time. Vision imagines the future. Legacy anchors it in time. Together, they create durable influence. The builders profiled in this book understood expansion beyond their immediate lifespan. Their work reshaped economic patterns. Their structures influenced future entrepreneurs. Their decisions altered historical trajectory. That's legacy. The final reframe. Success is not the number in your account. It is the durability of your contribution. It is the stability of what you leave behind. It is the standard you set for those who follow. Wealth may attract admiration. Legacy earns respect. Respect endures.